It's about certain things that take place in our life, and we're going to see several examples of that and how we as teachers should and can capitalize on them to help our students. Now, the whole idea of civic education and integrating it into the curriculum started many years ago with a lot of activities that were conducted here in Cali. At the time, very popular people about was the idea of education, and where the whole concept, how it started here, became part and parcel of all the Egyptian education standards. In all the standards today, in all of them, there are issues related to civic education as part and parcel of the curriculum. Now, one of the reasons why this emerged, you see, is that we note today that children spend more time at school than they do at home. So many of the morals and values that the children should acquire should be provided within the school system, within the curriculum, and particularly by the teacher. And here we have to pause, because teachers usually regard themselves as transmitters of knowledge. In other words, the teacher will concentrate only on the content of the subject, you see, to explain to the student. The teacher seems to have forgotten her or his role as an educator. We as teachers, we are expected to educate the children as well as teach them, particularly that we spend such a long time with the students, with our pupils, that we have to help them understand certain things. And therefore, the whole idea of civic issues being part and parcel of the curriculum reinforces the role as the teacher, not only to transmit knowledge and content, but also to transmit certain values. It's not working. Hennig. The technician fellow went out. He went out. Can anyone help us at the back there? Hadid Risaidna? Hennig. It was moving with this, but not anymore. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, this is more the role of the teachers. You see, the role of the teachers is much broader than the limited way that we usually work in. It's much, much broader. Okay. Okay, now if this is the role of the teacher, and we are going to deal as teachers with content of civic education in our teaching, they thought that the best way for us to do that within the classroom, in other words, the teaching techniques to use would be content-based instruction. Now, why content-based instruction? You see, it's the whole idea, I don't have to explain it again, about language learning is using language to learn. And the reading specialists talk about learning to read and reading to learn, the difference between them. You see, you can do both at the same time, and this is what content-based instruction advocates. It's jumping. Anyway, the same goes from writing, learning to write, and writing to learn. Okay, so if we're using content-based instruction, what are the strategies we use in the classroom? They said we should use cooperative learning, all right? It's jumped another. How can I get back? Excuse me, how can I go back? There's one missing. How can I go back? I'm not familiar with this at all. Ah, okay. So the advocate for the strategies to use in the classroom was for students to learn to work together, you see, in teams. The teams will mean good group work and cooperative teaching, all right? There must be something attractive in cooperative teaching for our students. And these are the things that are attractive, you see, and this is what happens when students use and when the teachers use cooperative activities in the classroom. Okay, and students usually respond well. When they're working together, they respond well and they're able to produce more. So in terms of when we're teaching using civic issues, it is content-based instruction, CBI, plus cooperative teaching. All right. As language teachers, of course. Now, the cooperative learning, you see, contrasts a lot of, in many ways, with what we see our students doing today. Our students today are usually very busy with their mobiles, you see, and they like to interact with their mobiles and they don't interact together. Now, if we're going to talk about values and morals and civic issues, they have to work together. I mean, the modern technology may have its advantages, but it also isolates people, and this, I think, is very, very dangerous, you see, in terms of people trying to learn a language or trying to develop their language further. It is dangerous, but that's why the emphasis is on cooperation. All right, and cooperation means they will cooperate, work together, and they will produce, because the teacher is not just giving knowledge, it is more than knowledge. They're giving them the tools to face life at this time. Now, that's why today, in talking about civic education, I am focusing on democracy, the concept of democracy. Now, one of the reasons for focusing on democracy is that within the past 5 years, things have changed a lot in Egypt, but not only Egypt, in other countries around the world. Things are changing, you see, and civic issues like democracy, rights, responsibility, etc., are some words that everyone is using, but not necessarily fully understanding, you see. And that's why the emphasis here is that if we start with children from a young age, teaching them about responsibility, authority, and justice, And these are the three elements that are essential to democracy, that we start from a very young age, including this in our classroom discussions. As the children grow up, they will have a much more mature idea about what it means. Today, you find things, and I think many of you are witnesses to it. For example, it's considered normal to drive right through a one-way street. And people will say, well, I'm free, it's a democracy. And this is the answer the ridiculous answer that we get from so many people. The misconception, the unguided ideas that some people have of democracy is really very troubling, very disturbing for all of us, because that's not democracy, you see. And that's why I chose this topic to discuss today, you see. So the foundations of democracy are here it is: responsibility, authority, and justice, you see. And I'm going to talk very briefly about each one. We'll see how they can be included in classrooms. I have a few activities where I'll expect some responses from you, but they're all very simple responses that you may think of as being quite logical, you see. But it has a very good impact on students. And why do I say it has a good impact and a fruitful impact on students? Because I've practiced all these things over the years. I was all over Egypt. I was one of the trainers working with teachers on integrating civic education issues in their classrooms. And some of the teachers and the students have done some amazing things as a result of this. The impact is really, really very, very strong. So these are the foundations of democracy. And we said the first issue here is responsibility. And of course, when we work with students, they'll have to know what it means. And that's why I've put the meaning here. Okay? So the students will be using English to practice social responsibilities in areas such as, and you've got the areas there in front of you. Okay? Now, when they come to talk, you talk to students about responsibility, you have to help them with these questions, you see, and you have to discuss with them the sources of responsibility. And they're listed here in front of you. Even a promise is responsibility, you see. Moral principles, customs, our customs, all these put certain responsibilities on us as individuals. All right. Now, I'm going to show you actually three pictures, and we'll very quickly say where is the source of responsibility here. For example, here, what do we see in this picture? Yes? Who's in class? Who's doing the teaching? A student. Okay, what's the student responsible for? All right. And who gave her this responsibility? Probably. Probably. All right, the student just stood up and gave the lesson, or did she have to prepare it? She had to, all right, so the teacher told her, you will do this, and she had several responsibilities based on this. Now she has to prepare it, she has to deliver it, she has to make sure that her colleagues have understood it. This is just a very simple example. We could go further and say, I mean, for example, this student here is using a smart board. So who would have to help her? There would have to be maybe a technician to help so that when she gets lost, like I was getting lost here, you see, the technician can help her. So who is responsible here? The technician. So you see, these are just simple examples, you see, that you could question students about, you see, and they will respond. Look at this picture here. Here you've got a picture. What's happening here? It's a student. What is she doing? An announcement, giving a speech, or, yeah, okay. Who gave her this responsibility? It may be a teacher, maybe the principal, maybe the assistant principal, maybe the head of the department. Someone gave her this responsibility. Okay, what are these ones responsible for? They're probably responsible for listening and understanding. They also have a responsibility. All right, and here, yeah, and he's responsible for what? Helping children, helping them, right, exactly. It's safety, getting them across the road or whatever, okay? So you can see here responsibilities. And if we wanted to discuss it further, but I don't want to waste your time because we have a time issue here, but we could talk about responsibilities of people here in the conference. For example, plenary speakers, presenters, caretakers and porters, attendees. Let's take one of them. Let's just discuss one of them briefly. What are the responsibilities of a plenary speaker? And if the plenary speaker does not take on the responsibility, what will happen? What will happen? Useless? Mm-hmm. Okay, waste your time. Yes, exactly, waste your time. Okay, but what is he responsible to do? To plan, to prepare. Okay. Yes. Yes. So he or she has responsibilities. And if these responsibilities are not carried out, you will waste your time, therefore you'll be very angry. You'll be very frustrated, you see. And so it has consequences. If you don't take on the responsibility and you don't carry it out, there are responsibilities. Okay. All right. Here, for example, if we're working in a school, if you're working in a classroom, what I've done here, you'll find that these are quotations. You'll find several things taken from books that are part of the national curriculum here in Egypt. National curriculum, not a special curriculum for language schools, but the national curriculum where civic education issues have been integrated, you know, into the normal teaching. Now, the civic education issues can be discussed with students from a very, very young age to much older. We, as teachers, we control based on the level of the students in front of us. Most of the examples here are more or less people with the competence of intermediate English, but it can be done with younger or a lower level, and it can be done at a higher level, and it's you as teachers who control this and who make the choices. You see, here, they're making a list. They give a list of things to be done, all right? The teacher can make a list. The students also can make a list for each other if they want to distribute certain responsibilities. And this could be either oral or written, okay? If we look at this example, this is also an example of something that happened on a ship. This is taken from Hello. It's something that happened on a ship. Now, here if we're talking about responsibility, they're saying, all right, who was responsible for this? Sorry, I forgot to turn it. Okay, who is the authority on the submarine? Sorry, it's not a ship, it's a submarine. Why? What are the duties? Now you see we're moving into a new area. What are the duties, powers and limits of the position? Let's say it's the captain of the ship. So we're going to discuss, here we're widening up the discussion, you see, and we're moving into the area of authority. We're moving slowly into the area of authority because, of course, responsibility and authority and all these things are very closely linked together. All right? Now, when I take on a responsibility, when I take on a responsibility, you take on a responsibility, it costs you something. If I take on the responsibility as a speaker, it will cost me that I have to invest plenty of my time in terms of preparation, you see. So there are benefits and there are costs. Everything has a benefit and everything has a cost. Now, you see, discussing these issues with children is very important. You see, it's a relaxation from something like, inshallah, inshallah. No, if you're taking on the responsibility, the child is expected to fulfill. All right? And, yes? Yeah. Yes, of course. Of course. Of course. Pardon? To teenagers? If teenagers are responsible. Yes. Oh, yes. 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 That takes us on to the next point, which is competing responsibilities. You want them to study, but they have other priorities. They have other priorities. You see, they want to watch television. You see. Now, the thing with these issues, that there are lists of questions, you see, that they have to answer. I have not brought these lists of questions and all that, but they are things that come more or less by instinct. You'll say to them, all right, if you waste time watching television, your results will be affected. There are certain things. What do you want? Do you want the television or do you want to fail? You see, there are ways of convincing and discussing. You see, I mean, competing also. Let's say I want to remain slim and I don't want to get fat and all that. I have to do physical exercise. But on my holiday, I want to sit up and eat crisps and drink Coca-Cola and watch television. So here we have a competition. They are competing. And how do we make choices, or how do we help our students and young people to make choices, you see, by asking questions, you see, questions that will reveal to them, that will help them make the right, hopefully, make the right decision. You can't force them, but you can discuss with them. You see, now this can happen in the classroom all the time, and as you can see, this is the kind of thing that encourages interaction, a lot of interaction. And as students are working in groups, you see, they report back to you what they think. No, our group has decided that staying at home and eating crisps and Coca-Cola is the right thing because so and so. So you see, it encourages a lot of discussion. Now, as I was saying, that these couple of examples have moved us into the area of authority. You see, authority, as you can see here, this is the definitions that we have, or these are the simple definitions that we have of authority. The right to use power to influence or control the behavior of others. And power is the ability to control or influence others. This is authority. Now let's look at this. Again, more or less the same definition of authority. But in addition to that, we have the case of power without authority. You see, for example, there are many cases and many examples when sometimes people like to exercise power, you see, but they don't have the authority to. And this is something I think should be clear in the minds of young people. I mean, like the person who was saying, no, I'm free, it's a democracy, I can go into the one-way street with my car as I like. No. You see, you can't. Why? Why? Why can't? Rules. Who put down the rules? Someone put down some rules to control certain things in life that we have to respect, you see. But if I say to the people, if I go out there and I say, no, I don't want anyone else coming into this room, it's not my right. This is not my right. I do not have the right to tell people not to come into the room or not to do something. So we have to differentiate between having the authority. I have the authority here maybe to ask and discuss things. You can ask me questions, you see, but I don't have other authorities, all right? I'm trying to go as quickly as possible. All right. These are just a few examples here. Look at them quickly. Ahmed decided to go to the club after school. Who has authority here? Who is using this power? Ahmed, he decided himself, okay? Right. Look at this one. Omar's mother told him. His mother uses the authority here. Yes, she used her authority. You see, we don't know. We don't know, you see, and this is a kind of debate that we'll be discussing. You see, she couldn't watch the film because her brother kept changing the channel. I don't know, I have a couple of women here, but most women know that if they're married, their husbands are in complete control of the remote control. Everyone smiles. You understand what I'm talking about. Yes, It is glued to their hand. No one can touch the remote control. Whether this is his right or not, this is another story. But this is what happens. The power of the channels remains with the husband. All right. Ahmed gave £1 to a person in the street. Whose decision? Ahmed. To save electricity? Right. Right, the district, the government, whoever. Does the government have authority? Yes. They must have a reason for doing that. Yes, and we have to abide by it. The shopkeepers will have to close early. Okay. Yes, yes. Yeah. That's very true. That's very true. In many cases, that happens. Yes. Yes. Some, that's true, but that's not always the case. You see, when people choose to drive in one-way streets and all that, I should have the mentality or the understanding not to do something like that, because the result is usually what happens, that there is a traffic jam. Some people do, but not everyone. And that's why it's very annoying for people who respect the laws and the rules, you see. Okay. This is the idea of when we choose someone for authority, places of positions of authority. What are we looking for? These are the questions that we should be asking ourselves, and this is something that children should be aware of from a very young age, because we want them to vote, to make choices within their school of which student will be the prefect or the supervisor of the class. So therefore, these are the issues that younger children should be aware of, so that it grows up to be part and parcel of their characters and principles. I give you another set of questions also. These are tools that help us evaluate a candidate for a position of authority, any position of authority. You see, these are the things that we should be thinking about. You see, what are these people going to do? Who is the person? Is he or she qualified to do this? Are they qualified or not? Will they be in the right place? Will they serve what it is that we need from them? These are the points that we should be bearing in mind, okay? And this kind of exercise can create a lot of discussion in the classroom. And particularly that we are asking the students to respond or to report back to us, whether it's oral or written or whatever. We're asking them to report back. Here, the child will feel that he is important, therefore he has to express himself. He has to say something, you see, and therefore the reaction is usually positive. They have things to say that sometimes children will surprise you what they say and feel. And dealing with these issues within the classroom, you see, pushes them, reinforces them to communicate. Here's an example. If we're talking about positions, you see, and this is an activity that can be done in the classroom in 10 minutes. I'll just give you a minute to look at it. Of course, we could be talking about the coach, we could be talking about a teacher, we could be talking about the principal, we could be talking about a number of things, supervisors, etc. Of course, there are other, I gave you some examples. I answered, in fact, this question, all right? But maybe you can think of something different and give me an example of something different, yes? Yes? Okay. Okay. All right. But I mean, if what you're doing is you're giving them something about yourself. But here we want them to, thank you. Here we want the students to say, all right, I choose Dina because so and so and so and so. You see, we want them to give us a reason why they're choosing someone for a certain position. Yeah, yes? Yeah, but the qualification will be more than smartness, you see. Maybe it's because he's got a loud voice, so everyone can hear him. It may be not, it has nothing to do with being smart. And we're hoping that they will arrive at decisions that are a little bit more objective, you see. And we always have to make choices. And when you're choosing someone for a position of authority, it's a matter of choice. There may be different ideas, but it's a matter of choice. Uh, because AB, yeah. Yes, these, of course, yeah, yeah. And this, you see, will bring us to the next point. You see, that they're all very related, is when we come to talk about justice. Is my friend here that can fix this? Can you fix? Where is Muhammad? Has he gone? It's all gone. Yeah. No, it's gone. Oh, here it is. I found it. Justice. Yes, you had a question, Nina. Mm-hmm. Well, there is a big difference between politics and what we're talking about. And not only civic education, we're not going to say the word civic education. It's already in any passage you pick, any passage in any book, there are issues that are related to civic education. It doesn't matter where, you see. But what we are doing actually is indirectly training them in very important issues like voting and making choices, making smart choices, you see. So I don't think I'd go to the point of telling them the difference between politics, and I don't think I'd even touch on it. Okay? And justice will take us a little bit closer to this, you see, because we have types of justice, and justice is the most difficult to discuss. And I'll try and pass by it quickly because it goes into a whole different dimension, and the idea of legal and illegal and all that comes into it, you see. But basically speaking, we have what we call distributive justice, and this is when I choose you to be on my team. You see, I didn't choose anyone else, I chose you, you see. And this happens, of course. And you will be on the football team. You will be on the tennis team. Now here, it's out of a class of 20, someone was chosen, you see, to be on a team. And how does this happen? You see, there are a number of questions that I have to ask myself before I choose you, to be able to justify my choice, you see. And if you get any books about civic education, you'll find these lists of questions that you can ask. Who is qualified? Does he have the ability, etc., that help you in making these choices? The next one is the corrective justice. Now, for example, you advertise a position and you say, only men can apply for this position. You have limited it to men, or only candidates under the age of 25 or 30 may apply. This is called corrective justice. Also under corrective justice, we have the student who hits his colleague and breaks his glasses. This again comes under corrective justice. And this is very, very difficult to deal with. And then we have procedural justice. Again, I'll take you back to the student who broke another student's glasses. Now, I as a teacher, what do I do in this case? Because I've got to find out, why did he beat him? How did he break his glasses, etc. And then we have to think of the penalties. And this is not easy. It's not easy at all. Remember the example we had before of the young boy that was, his sister couldn't watch television because he was, he believed that he had the authority. Okay, now when would he have the authority? Can you think? If he's much older, maybe if he's much older, it's a matter of age, that could be a reason, you see, but that is not always the case, you see. And here we have to think of, all right, is it his right to keep on changing the channel and prevent his sister from watching, you see? Under procedural justice also comes the judge who has to decide if someone is innocent or guilty, you see, when you're in court. This in court and all that, that's all called procedural justice. So, in any decision that we make, you see, about justice, any decision will have a benefit and it will have a cost, you see. The benefits, we know what the benefits are, you see, as you can see here, but we have to be careful about the costs. The costs should not be too, they shouldn't be too harsh. These are some problems that face justice, okay? Now, having the right to vote. What kind of justice are we discussing here? If you remember, I'll get it back for you. We have the distributive justice, corrective justice, and procedural. So here, have the right to vote. It is what? Right. It's corrective, yes. And corrective also, we have competition here. We have two things competing, right? That I saw my colleague cheating. Do I go and tell the teacher, or do I keep quiet because she or he is my colleague and love and they trust me, etc.? And this is a corrective justice because it's a situation that has to be corrected. All right. Procedural, yes, it will need a process. That's right. Corrective. And who started the fight in the playground? Right. Now, you see, all these have to do with more or less making rules. There have to be some rules to follow. Okay, so here are some tools for evaluating rules and laws. Now, we do not necessarily have to agree to all the rules and laws that we are expected to follow, you see. But here are the questions that we ask ourselves, or we ask others, you see, if they say, no, I don't agree to leaving school at 4 o'clock, I want to leave at 3. That is the time that school ends. School ends at 4 o'clock, but they want to leave at 3. So these are the kind of things that we think about, or we can discuss with others. Okay? So here, once you have these questions and this way of thinking, they can discuss anything, the benefits of and costs of a school law or a school yeah, pardon? Yes, this is very debatable, you see, and you can talk about it in terms of the benefits and the costs, you see. We can discuss this one. A national decision is made that requires all potential women employees to sign a guarantee that they will not have children during their first 2 years of employment. Okay? What's the benefit of this? What's the benefit? This is a scenario, this is a possibility. What's the benefit of this? Yeah, they won't have any time off. To be fully dedicated to the job, yes. Work, service, production, something that I'm sure that if I appoint you for the next 2 years, you're with me, you see. Okay. So obviously, there are benefits. What about the costs? What's the downfall of this? Maybe? Depriving them of being a mother? Yes. It could be serious problems. In terms of fairness, most women will feel that this is very unfair. It's not fair. You see, and this, in fact, this is a very debatable topic. I mean, because, all of us at one time, if you've been running a job, running an institution or something, there is a price to pay once a woman is appointed. with all the leave that they get. And now a woman can be on leave until the child is 6 years old. 6 years old, and they are counted as being employed. You see, you can't replace them. You see, so there are costs and there are benefits, yeah. Exactly. I mean, I'm a woman, and when I was hiring, I don't want women because it's such a problem. They're counted, and particularly if you're working for a government, it, the names are there, but they're not in the classes. It's a big problem. Yes. At our time, when I had children, I was given 30 days off. That's it. But now, of course, we're all very understanding and all that, and we get leave. And the thing is that in most cases, it's a misuse of the law. Why? What happens is that they take the 6 years off and they go and work somewhere else. You see? And yes, we know, of course. You see, I know it very well. Yes. It does, it varies everywhere. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's a limit. No, but you see, the 6 years is without pay, but she has a job. She'll go back to it. Yeah. Yeah. No, there isn't. There isn't. It's only women. And you see, it's a problem. You might, I'm not sure. But what I know is that when that's the case, the wife takes the leave and not the husband. Takes leave because of children, because it's easier. It's a guarantee that they'll get it. Yeah, I don't know. in, in, in the you see, in the classroom, you'd get all kinds of responses. I mean, that's for older children, and they can talk about these for girls, boys, all of them can talk about these things. And it does provoke a lot of discussion. And what's left, rules, you see, and these are characteristics of a good rule or a good law, a law or rule. You see, they have characteristics. They have weaknesses, which we hope they don't have, but they should have all the good points. Not easy, but that's the way it should be. Yeah, I know. Well, I can always give them a proper workshop on it, but anyway. Okay, in what follows, I'm just going to provide with some ideas of things that can be done in class with different ages, you see, and not necessarily related to democracy. It could be other things, as you will see. It could be language exercises, etc. For example, here what we're talking about actually is conflict resolution, when there is a misunderstanding between two people or within a classroom. All right, and there are ways of expressing yourself in English. It could be strong, mean, or avoiding, you see. And it's a situation, you see, that you can get the students to discuss it. between them, and they're going to act it out. They're going to do several things, and of course, at the end of the day, they could even, it could be suggested that they share the toy instead of fighting. And this is what we usually call conflict resolution. And there are so many different ways of conducting exercises and classroom activities on conflict resolution. Oh, yes, yes, definitely. There are all kinds of exercises, and it could be linked to many, many lessons that you're conducting. Here, we're encouraging the students to construct strong messages, you see, and you give them the structure, and they can fill in whatever it is they want. They're provided with the structure, and they can fill in the blanks here. But also, they can use these structures in so many other things. And this, again, this was related to lessons in Hello. Yeah, sure, sure. But sometimes when it goes too far, you need to give a strong answer. So we used to provide exercises for all kinds of cases. All right. And here we have talking about people around the world, you see. And the reason for this is they were talking about the people around the world, and then you ask them for an activity where they are going to provide comparisons, you see, and express a different point of view. For example, in Britain, they celebrate Christmas. In Egypt, we don't usually celebrate Christmas, but we celebrate other things. And see, English is a good subject, but I'm more interested in science. It's when I differ with you in what I'm doing in terms of tradition, or in opinions, or in feelings, you see. I like music, but I prefer watching television. That kind of thing. And you see, you can encourage them to write to a pen friend where they have different opinions and different ideas. I'm sorry about that. This is another exercise. They can, it's the same sort of thing where they're talking to their teacher, the teacher who is in authority, and they're telling the teacher that they don't want a test on a certain day for certain reasons. And this can be done, again, role-playing, orally, or they write a letter. Yes. And these are, at the time, critical thinking. We were talking about, I don't know if you've seen the film of Ahmed Zaki, زوجة رجل مهم. You have? Yeah, well, the film was a provoking film. It provoked a lot of negative feelings about people in authority and the way he was treating his wife, etc. These kind of things can be brought into the classroom, you see, where there were lots of negative things about this person. And they can write some of these negative things. They can talk about a positive film, something that they liked, you see. And here there are exercises on apologizing, inviting, refusal, agreeing, disagreeing, etc. And here you can have role play in the classroom, you see, agreeing or disagreeing over a certain point. There is a disagreement between us, and they can write whether they agree, disagree. Some of the students can be resolving the conflict, trying to find a solution, and other students can be writing the key sentences on the blackboard. Here, you're involving the students in different ways, you see, and these are only examples. I don't know whether you're familiar with this today, you see. We call it a semicolon, but of course this is old-fashioned now. The exercises I was talking about, you see, we're trying to develop spoken language, written language. You see, we're trying to develop everything. And one way of developing the language and talking about these issues within the schools are posters. So there are so many posters in all our schools, but in many cases, I don't know why the posters are there, you see, but there are a number of civic issues. If they're put up on posters, they can be very, very effective in terms of the ideas and values that they communicate and the language, okay? It's done it again. I wanted to just show you the example of a poster. Yeah. Someone made a mistake, he left home late. I should have left home earlier. Never waste time, time is precious. These are just simple, you know, examples of posters that could be used in the classroom. And with that, I thank you all, and I thank you all for sitting through it. And I hope if you want to ask any questions or make any comments, go ahead. I try to do it as quickly as possible. I mean, I hope it's okay. Thank you.